Warning: his video contains details of real crime cases. Watch with caution. If you're a fan of true crime investigations and want to follow more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any case. In the sun-drenched streets of Palm Springs, California, where desert winds carry whispers of both dreams and secrets, 20-year-old Jason Reynolds was building what seemed to be the perfect life. A gifted massage therapist with movie star looks and a magnetic personality, Jason had recently relocated from his humble beginnings in small-town Wisconsin, seeking the golden promises of the West Coast. The year was 2016, and Palm Springs' wealthy retirement community provided fertile ground for Jason's natural talents. His client list grew rapidly, populated primarily by affluent older women who found themselves drawn not just to his therapeutic skills, but to his disarming charm and attentive nature. With carefully styled brown hair, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could illuminate the darkest corners of any room, Jason possessed that rare ability to make everyone feel like they were the most important person in his world. He had this way about him, recalled Sarah Thompson, one of his regular clients at the Desert Palms Wellness Center. When Jason worked with you, it wasn't just a massage. It was like he could read your soul. He remembered every detail about your life, your family, your struggles. That kind of attention makes a person feel special. What most of his daytime clients didn't know was that Jason had discovered a lucrative parallel world, the sugar baby lifestyle. In this carefully curated realm of mutually beneficial relationships, Jason found himself particularly sought after. His primary sugar mama was Victoria Warner, a 59-year-old celebrity astrologer whose name frequently graced the pages of high-end lifestyle magazines. With her striking silver hair and collection of flowing designer kaftans, Victoria had built an empire reading the stars for Hollywood elite and tech billionaires, amassing both wealth and influence in equal measure. Their relationship began at one of Palm Springs' infamous poolside parties, where the desert elite gathered to escape the scorching summer heat. Victoria, immediately captivated by Jason's youth and charm, approached him with a proposition that would change and ultimately end his life. The arrangement started simply enough: companionship in exchange for financial support and access to Palm Springs' most exclusive circles. Victoria treated Jason like her personal trophy, explained Marcus Cooper, a bartender at the Sunset Lounge, where the couple was frequently seen. She'd parade him around at parties, showing him off to her friends. He seemed to enjoy it at first. I mean, who wouldn't? Designer clothes, expensive gifts, access to a world most 20-year-olds can only dream about. Indeed, Jason's social media painted a picture of unprecedented success. His Instagram feed transformed from simple gym selfies to shots of him lounging by infinity pools, driving luxury cars, and dining at exclusive restaurants. His most recent acquisition, a gleaming white Range Rover Sport, a birthday gift from an unnamed admirer, featured prominently in his posts. But beneath the glossy surface, tensions were brewing. Victoria's generosity came with strings attached, and those strings were beginning to feel more like chains. Text messages later recovered by investigators revealed a pattern of increasing possessiveness. Victoria would demand to know Jason's whereabouts at all hours, question his other client relationships, and react with volcanic fury to any perceived slight. He started showing up to work looking exhausted, remembered James Martinez, owner of the Desert Palms Wellness Center. There were days when he'd jump at the sound of his phone ringing. I asked him once if everything was okay, and he just gave me that 1,000-watt smile of his and said, "Living the dream, boss. Living the dream." But you could tell something was eating at him. Despite the growing complications in his relationship with Victoria, Jason remained optimistic about his future. He had just booked a week-long trip to Universal Studios Orlando, a childhood dream he'd never been able to fulfill growing up in his working-class family. His excitement about the upcoming vacation dominated his final social media posts, including a poignant video where he talked about finally being able to experience the Harry Potter world he'd read about as a kid. Looking back now, it's heartbreaking to watch those last few posts, said his childhood friend Emily Parker, who had planned to join him on the Orlando trip. He was so full of life, so excited about everything ahead of him. None of us could have imagined what was coming. In his last Instagram story, posted just hours before his death, Jason shared a sunset view from his apartment balcony with the caption, "Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe this is really my life now. Dreams do come true in California." The golden light captured in that final image would become a haunting reminder of how quickly dreams can turn into nightmares. Little did Jason know that his pursuit of a better life would lead him down a path from which there would be no return. The same qualities that made him so successful, his charm, his ability to make people feel special, his unwavering optimism, would ultimately contribute to his downfall. In less than 48 hours after posting that sunset view, Jason Reynolds would be found dead in his luxury apartment, leaving behind a web of jealousy, obsession, and unanswered questions that would shock the entire Palm Springs community. August 12, 2016, dawned like any other summer morning in Palm Springs, with the sun climbing early over the San Jacinto Mountains, promising another day of unrelenting desert heat. At the exclusive Vista Palms apartments, where monthly rents rivaled some mortgage payments, 82-year-old Dorothy Miller was completing her morning routine of watering the potted succulents on her balcony when something caught her attention. Jason Reynolds' Range Rover, usually meticulously clean, was covered in a fine layer of desert dust. As a retired nurse from Boston who had moved to Palm Springs for its perpetual sunshine, Dorothy had developed a friendship with her young neighbor, Jason. He would often help her with her groceries, and in return, she kept a spare key to his apartment for emergencies. Jason was religious about keeping that car spotless, Dorothy would later tell Detective Michael Harrison. "Seeing it dirty for 2 weeks straight, that's when I knew something was terribly wrong." At precisely 8:47 a.m., Dorothy made the decision that would launch one of Palm Springs' most shocking criminal investigations. Using the spare key, she entered Jason's apartment, calling out his name. The interior was eerily still, with the air conditioning humming quietly in the background. The living room appeared undisturbed. A half-empty protein shake still sat on the coffee table, and Jason's laptop remained open, its screen dark. It was the faint odor emanating from the master bathroom that led Dorothy to make the gruesome discovery. There, in a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned investigators, lay Jason Reynolds' body. He was unclothed, positioned face down with his head partially submerged in the toilet bowl. The position suggested not just murder, but a deeply personal act of humiliation. "In my 30 years of law enforcement, I've seen a lot of crime scenes," Detective Harrison would later write in his memoir. But there was something particularly disturbing about this one. The deliberate positioning of the victim, the complete lack of forced entry. This wasn't just a murder, it was a message. Within minutes of Dorothy's horrified 911 call, the Vista Palms apartments transformed from a quiet luxury residence into a hive of law enforcement activity. The Palm Springs Police Department's Major Crimes Unit, led by Detective Harrison and his partner, Detective Sarah Chun, took command of the scene. The apartment was quickly cordoned off, and forensics teams began their methodical documentation of every detail. The initial examination revealed several crucial pieces of information. First, there were no signs of forced entry, suggesting Jason likely knew his killer. Second, defensive wounds on his arms and bruising around his neck indicated a violent struggle. The position of furniture in the bedroom, a toppled lamp, a pushed-aside chair, told the story of a fight that had moved through multiple rooms before ending in the bathroom. Dr. Rachel Martinez, the county medical examiner, arrived at 10:15 a.m. to conduct her preliminary examination. The body showed signs of being in that position for approximately 36 to 48 hours, she noted in her official report. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation, but there were multiple contributing factors, including blunt force trauma to the back of the head. As crime scene technicians worked inside, Detectives Harrison and Chin began interviewing residents of the Vista Palms. A pattern quickly emerged from these conversations, painting a picture of Jason's final days. Several neighbors reported hearing what they described as an intense argument 2 nights before, though none had called the police at the time. "I heard a woman's voice, older sounding, really angry," reported James Wilson, who lived in the apartment directly below Jason's. "There was some shouting about betrayal, about lying. I almost called security, but then it got quiet. I figured they'd worked it out. God, I wish I'd called now." Another neighbor, Maria Sanchez, remembered seeing a silver Mercedes-Benz, matching the description of Victoria Warner's car, parked in Jason's spot the night of the argument. The woman seemed agitated, Maria told detectives. She was pacing back and forth by her car for almost an hour before going up to his apartment. By nightfall, the crime scene unit had collected over 100 pieces of evidence, including partial fingerprints from the bathroom sink, fibers from the carpet, and, most significantly, long silver hairs found clutched in Jason's right hand. Detective Harrison also discovered Jason's phone, cracked but still functional, hidden beneath the bathroom cabinet, a detail that would prove crucial as the investigation unfolded. The media descended quickly on Vista Palms, with local news vans lining the street and reporters clamoring for details. The story had all the elements that guarantee headlines: a young, attractive victim, a luxurious setting, and hints of dark secrets beneath a glossy surface. By evening, Jason Reynolds' death was the lead story on every local channel, with speculation already beginning about the nature of his relationships with Palm Springs' wealthy elite. As the sun set over the San Jacinto Mountains that evening, casting long shadows across the crime scene tape that now surrounded Jason's building, Detective Harrison stood in the parking lot, watching the forensics team load their evidence into vans. "Sometimes a crime scene talks to you," he would later say in court testimony. This one wasn't just talking, it was screaming. Whoever killed Jason Reynolds wanted him to suffer, wanted him to feel powerless. This wasn't just about ending his life. It was about punishing him. The Palm Springs Police Department's Major Crimes Unit established their command center in a converted conference room at police headquarters, its walls soon covered with photographs, timelines, and potential suspect profiles. As Detective Harrison pinned up a particularly striking photo of Jason Reynolds, the investigation was about to reveal a complex web of relationships that would shake the desert city's wealthy elite to its core. Victoria Warner emerged as the investigation's primary focus within the first 48 hours. The celebrity astrologer's carefully cultivated public image, that of a spiritual guide to the stars, began to crumble under investigative scrutiny. Detective Sarah Chun, known for her meticulous attention to detail, uncovered a pattern of increasingly erratic behavior in Warner's recent past. Ms. Warner's financial records told a compelling story, Detective Chun would later testify. In the 6 months leading up to Jason's death, she had spent over $300,000 on him: designer clothes, watches, the Range Rover. But what caught our attention were the 3 separate occasions where she had hired private investigators to follow him. When brought in for questioning, Warner arrived with her attorney, the high-profile defense lawyer Robert Stevenson. Her initial statement presented a carefully constructed alibi. She claimed to have been at home on the night of the murder, hosting a private astrological reading session for a group of clients. However, cell phone tower data would later place her device within a quarter mile of Jason's apartment during the critical hours. "I loved Jason like a son," Warner insisted during her first interview, her silver hair immaculately styled, her hands steady as she sipped water from a paper cup. "Why would I hurt someone I've invested so much in?" But as Detective Harrison pressed harder, cracks began to appear in her composed facade. When presented with text messages showing her threatening behavior, Warner's demeanor changed dramatically. Meanwhile, a second suspect emerged: William Rothschild, a 68-year-old hedge fund manager known for his lavish parties and volatile temper. Rothschild had also been one of Jason's benefactors, though their relationship had reportedly soured in the weeks before the murder. During questioning, Rothschild remained coldly analytical, admitting to his financial relationship with Jason while emphasizing his presence at a charity gala in Los Angeles on the night of the murder, an alibi that would later be confirmed by multiple witnesses. Mr. Rothschild's involvement initially seemed promising, Detective Chin noted in her case files. He had both motive and means, but his alibi was unfortunately airtight. Security footage from the Beverly Hilton placed him there throughout the entire evening in question. The investigation took an unexpected turn when detectives interviewed Tyler Anderson, a 21-year-old personal trainer who worked at the same wellness center as Jason. Anderson's initial statement painted him as barely an acquaintance, but his cell phone records told a different story. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Anderson and Jason had exchanged hundreds of messages, many of them increasingly hostile. "You can't just come here and take everything," read one message from Anderson to Jason, sent 3 days before the murder. "Someone needs to teach you a lesson about respect." When confronted with these messages, Anderson's cool demeanor cracked. He admitted to a professional rivalry with Jason, claiming the victim had been stealing his wealthy clients. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source, a small pawn shop on the outskirts of Palm Springs. The owner, Frank Martinez, contacted police after recognizing Jason's distinctive Cartier love bracelet, a $45,000 gift from Warner, in his shop's security footage. The person pawning the bracelet wasn't Tyler Anderson or William Rothschild, but Victoria Warner herself, less than 24 hours after the estimated time of death. The security footage was damning, Detective Harrison recalled. Ms. Warner appeared agitated, constantly looking over her shoulder. She practically threw the bracelet at Martinez, accepting less than a tenth of its value. That's not the behavior of someone uninvolved in a crime. Further forensic analysis yielded more damning evidence. The silver hairs found in Jason's hand were a match for Warner's DNA. Carpet fibers found on her clothing matched those from Jason's apartment. Most crucially, security footage from Vista Palms' parking garage showed Warner's Mercedes entering at 11:42 p.m. on the night of the murder and leaving at 1:17 a.m. the following morning. The investigation also uncovered a series of deleted emails from Warner's cloud storage, revealing an obsession that had grown increasingly dangerous. "You belong to me," she wrote in one message sent the day before the murder. "I made you everything you are. Without me, you're nothing but a small-town nobody who gives massages to old ladies." As detectives pieced together the final hours of Jason's life, a clear picture emerged of a relationship that had spiraled into fatal obsession. Warner's financial support had become a means of control, and when that control began to slip, as Jason started developing other wealthy clients and planning his independent future, the situation turned deadly. What makes this case particularly tragic, Detective Chin reflected, is how predictable it was in retrospect. All the warning signs were there. The controlling behavior, the surveillance, the emotional manipulation. But in a world where luxury and excess are the norm, these red flags were dismissed as mere eccentricities of the wealthy. 6 days into the investigation, as the summer heat wrapped Palm Springs in its relentless embrace, the case against Victoria Warner was building momentum. However, it was a seemingly routine call from Frank Martinez's pawn shop that would provide the crucial evidence needed to secure a conviction. Detective Harrison and Detective Chin arrived at Desert Dreams Pawn and Jewelry just as the morning sun was beginning to bake the asphalt of the parking lot. Martinez, a former military policeman turned pawnbroker, had spent the weekend reviewing his security footage after seeing Jason's case on the local news. "I knew something wasn't right when she came in," Martinez explained to the detectives, his computer screen displaying footage from the morning after the murder. "Most people who come to pawn high-end jewelry, they negotiate. They know what they have. But she just wanted to get rid of it fast." The footage showed Warner entering the shop at 9:17 a.m., less than 8 hours after leaving Jason's apartment. Her usual polished appearance was noticeably disheveled. Her signature silver hair pulled back messily, her designer clothes wrinkled. Most tellingly, she was wearing long sleeves despite the desert heat. Something the prosecution would later argue was an attempt to hide defensive scratch marks on her arms. "Watch her hands," Detective Chun pointed out during their review of the footage. "She's not just nervous. She's physically shaking as she hands over the bracelet. And look at her reaction when Martinez asks for ID. That's not just anxiety. That's fear." The Cartier love bracelet itself became a powerful piece of evidence. Not only was it inscribed with Jason's initials, but it also contained microscopic traces of blood in its clasp mechanism. DNA analysis would later confirm it was Jason's blood, suggesting the bracelet had been forcibly removed during the struggle. This discovery led to a more thorough examination of Warner's financial transactions in the hours following Jason's death. Bank records revealed a pattern of erratic behavior, multiple ATM withdrawals from different locations, a failed attempt to purchase a one-way ticket to Vancouver, and the cancellation of several credit cards. "She was trying to run," Detective Harrison noted in his case files. "But she was too emotionally unstable to execute an effective escape plan. Each transaction, each movement, left a breadcrumb trail for us to follow." The investigation took another significant turn when detectives re-interviewed Warner's astrological clients who had supposedly been present during her alibi timeframe. Under more intensive questioning, her carefully constructed alibi began to unravel. Patricia Winters, a longtime client of Warner's, finally broke her silence. Victoria called me the morning after it happened. She begged me to say I'd been at her house that night for a reading. She said it was about a messy breakup, that she needed friends to protect her. I agreed at first, but I can't live with that lie anymore. With Warner's alibi crumbling, forensics delivered another devastating piece of evidence. Analysis of the blood patterns in Jason's bathroom revealed something crucial about his final moments. Dr. Rachel Martinez, the medical examiner, presented her findings to the investigation team. The victim was initially struck from behind in the bedroom, but the fatal confrontation occurred in the bathroom. Blood spatter patterns indicate he was still conscious when he entered the bathroom, likely trying to escape. The perpetrator would have had to be significantly motivated and physically capable of overwhelming a young, fit man, suggesting an adrenaline-fueled rage state. This analysis aligned perfectly with a series of short video clips recovered from Jason's damaged phone. In the final clip, recorded just minutes before his estimated time of death, Jason can be heard arguing with Warner. "You can't keep controlling my life." His voice rings out, followed by Warner's response, "I made you. Everything you are is because of me." The clip ends with the sound of breaking glass and a sharp intake of breath. Detective Chin's technology team also uncovered a series of deleted text messages from Warner's phone, sent to her spiritual advisor in the days leading up to the murder. "The stars are telling me to reclaim what's mine. He thinks he can just take my gifts and leave? Sometimes the universe demands justice through our own hands." The final piece of physical evidence came from Warner's Mercedes. Despite her attempts to have the car professionally cleaned the day after the murder, crime scene technicians discovered traces of Jason's blood on the steering wheel and microscopic carpet fibers from his apartment on the car's floor mats. "It was like watching a house of cards collapse," Detective Harrison would later say. Each new piece of evidence knocked down another part of her alibi, another element of her carefully constructed facade. The woman who claimed to read the stars had failed to see her own downfall written in the evidence she left behind. By the end of the 6th day of investigation, detectives had assembled an overwhelming case. The combination of physical evidence, witness statements, financial records, and digital forensics painted a clear picture of premeditated murder motivated by obsession and control. The arrest of Victoria Warner on August 22, 2016, sent shockwaves through Palm Springs' affluent community. SWAT teams surrounded her Mediterranean-style villa at dawn, finding the once prestigious astrologer in her home office, surrounded by charts and crystals, calmly reading tarot cards. "She didn't seem surprised to see us," recalled Sergeant Tom Brooks, who led the arrest team. "She was wearing the same clothes we saw in her Instagram post from 3 days earlier, suggesting she hadn't left the house since the murder. The only thing she said during the arrest was, 'Mercury was in retrograde. It wasn't my fault.'" The trial began 3 months later at the Riverside County Superior Court, quickly becoming one of the most sensational legal proceedings in Palm Springs history. The national media descended upon the courthouse, drawn by the case's explosive mixture of wealth, youth, obsession, and murder. District Attorney Eleanor Martinez led the prosecution, methodically presenting evidence that painted a disturbing portrait of psychological manipulation and fatal possessiveness. "This is not a crime of passion," Martinez declared in her opening statement. "This is a crime of ownership." Ms. Warner didn't just want Jason Reynolds' affection. She wanted to own his very existence. The defense, led by celebrated attorney Robert Stevenson, pursued an unusual strategy. Rather than deny Warner's presence at the crime scene, they constructed a narrative around diminished capacity, citing Warner's intense belief in astrological forces. "My client's actions were guided by her genuine belief in cosmic influences," Stevenson argued. "Her judgment was impaired by a perfect storm of astrological events that she believed demanded action." This astrological defense drew both mockery and serious debate about the role of belief systems in criminal responsibility. Expert witnesses included both psychiatric professionals and, in an unusual turn, respected astronomers who were called to debunk Warner's claims about planetary influences on human behavior. The trial's most powerful moments came during the victim impact statements. Jason's mother, Susan Reynolds, took the stand wearing her son's Cartier bracelet, the same one Warner had pawned after the murder, now released from evidence. "My son came to Palm Springs to build a better life," she testified, her voice unwavering. "Instead, he found himself trapped in a golden cage, and when he tried to spread his wings, his captor decided that if she couldn't have him, no one would. The stars didn't kill my son. Victoria Warner did." Warner herself took the stand in what many considered a devastating miscalculation by the defense. Over 3 days of testimony, her carefully maintained composure gradually crumbled under cross-examination. The turning point came when Prosecutor Martinez presented Warner's own astrological readings about Jason. "You wrote here, in your private journal," Martinez questioned, "that his rising sign shows a betrayer who must be stopped. Did the stars tell you to hold his head in a toilet, Ms. Warner? Did Jupiter instruct you to humiliate him in death?" Warner's response, "Sometimes the universe requires sacrifice," sent audible gasps through the courtroom and became the prosecution's centerpiece in closing arguments. After 8 days of deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. In a decision that would spark intense debate, Warner was found guilty of second-degree murder rather than the first-degree charge sought by prosecutors. The jury forewoman later explained that while they rejected the astrological defense, they also weren't fully convinced of premeditation. Judge Harold Mitchell sentenced Warner to 15 years to life in state prison, a decision that drew criticism from both sides. Warner's supporters claimed it was too harsh, while Jason's family and their advocates argued it was insufficient for the brutality of the crime. "The sentence reflects our society's ongoing struggle with crimes of privilege," commented Dr. Rachel Foster, a criminal psychologist who followed the case. "When the perpetrator is wealthy, educated, and from a respected position in society, we often see more lenient sentences, even in cases of extreme violence." The aftermath of the trial brought significant changes to Palm Springs' wealthy enclave. The sugar baby phenomenon that had quietly thrived in the community became a subject of open discussion and concern. Several high-profile residents who had employed young companions quietly left town, and the Desert Palms Wellness Center where Jason had worked instituted strict policies about client-therapist relationships. The case also led to the creation of the Jason Reynolds Foundation, established by his mother to help young people recognize and escape manipulative relationships. "Jason's death exposed a dark underbelly in our society," Susan Reynolds said at the foundation's launch. "Where wealth and power are used as tools of control, where young dreams are both nurtured and destroyed by those who claim to support them." 5 years after Jason Reynolds' murder, the ripples of his tragic death continue to influence Palm Springs and beyond. The case has become more than just another true crime story. It has evolved into a cautionary tale about the dark intersection of wealth, power, and obsession in modern America. Victoria Warner, now serving her sentence at the California Institution for Women in Corona, has maintained a controversial presence even from behind bars. Through a blog allegedly maintained by her followers, she continues to publish astrological readings and claims of cosmic justification for her actions. These posts, while closely monitored by prison authorities, have attracted a disturbing cult following among certain fringe groups who view her as a misunderstood mystic rather than a convicted murderer. The continued romanticization of Warner's actions represents a troubling trend in our society, notes Dr. Elizabeth Crawford, a forensic psychologist specializing in crimes of obsession. The wealth and spiritual facade that initially enabled her behavior continue to shield her from the full moral weight of her actions, even after conviction. The Palm Springs Police Department has undergone significant changes in response to criticisms about their handling of warning signs before Jason's murder. Detective Sarah Chin, recently promoted to captain, has implemented new training protocols for officers dealing with cases involving wealthy perpetrators and potential victim exploitation. "Jason's case taught us that wealth can be a weapon," Chin explained during a recent law enforcement conference. "We now train our officers to look beyond the glamorous surface of these relationships and recognize patterns of control and manipulation, regardless of the socioeconomic status of those involved." The Desert Palms Wellness Center, where Jason once worked, has become an unexpected center for reform in the massage therapy industry. James Martinez, the owner, worked with state legislators to draft the Reynolds Act, a law requiring enhanced screening and protection for young wellness professionals. "We can't bring Jason back," Martinez said at the bill signing ceremony, "But we can help protect others who might find themselves in similar situations." The Reynolds Act ensures that no wellness professional has to choose between their safety and their livelihood. The case has also sparked academic interest, becoming a frequent subject of study in criminology programs across the country. Dr.